So it's exciting for me to be here today. Hope you guys had an excellent lunch and aren't too sleepy. My goal is to keep you awake for the next hour. If anything better than that happens, it's purely by accident. Okay? I have three things that I'm going to go over today. They're voice control, ChatOps, and for the remote worker. So I want to thank all of our wonderful sponsors. Without them, we wouldn't be here today. So thank you to them. Round of applause for the sponsors. Yeah. So I plan to share with you the work that my team has developed to respond to incidents. I always like to start with why something is important and why you'd spend time talking about it. So incidents can cause your company quite a bit of ill will, and outages are expensive. Studies are showing that the average cost per minute is approaching $10,000 to businesses. This was an interesting study that I've linked at the bottom. Trying not to veer too far because I'm not talking about these kind of outages. But 25% of the time, data center outages are due to the UPS or backup power supply not working. And those type of outages average a cost of about $750,000. So it's a pretty big deal to your company. So I plan to start at the bottom and work my way up, if you guys don't mind. So I'm going to start with the remote worker. My name is Blythe. I've worked in software for over 15 years, and I've contributed code to a number of open source projects, including Chef and Chef cookbooks, Qbot plugins, and quite a few other things. In the past, I've had the title of software engineer, where I'd write code all day. I've also had the title of software architect, where I'd write code when I wasn't in meetings most of the time, and when I wasn't writing like on a board on somewhere. I have ran the DevOps Kansas City meetup for the last 4 years, and we're about to do our second DevOps Days Kansas City, which is a 2-day conference in September, so we'd love for people from St. Louis to make the drive over. I work from home, so this is what it looked like when I was coming here this morning. I don't really get out much, so. Remote work is a lifestyle change. It's not for everyone. However, I believe that everybody should try it, at least for part of the time. I read this book called Remote, Office Not Required, and it literally changed my life. I recommend reading this book to understand the benefits of remote working or to understand like other people on your team that might be working remote. Depending on where you're at in life, I recommend you give it a try, but again, your mileage may vary. So since I started working remotely, this blog on Signal v Noise has been published. Signal v Noise is a blog from 37 Signals, the company, that was started by David Heinemeier Hansen and Jason Fried, who also happened to have written the book Remote. So here you can see the reasons for this particular engineer who authored this blog on why he works remote. He's taken time to explain why he loves working remote, and whether or not you should work remote, or regardless of whether you work remote or not, I think in technology, you should take account of where you're at every couple years and figure out the things that you like about the job that you're doing and the things that you don't. And then try to change that to make sure that you're constantly working on something that you enjoy. So while I do feel more productive not being in meet space meetings all the time, like I was previously, that's not why I work remotely. I have young children, and I recently had my third daughter, who's 1 year old, and I've seen more of her life than I did my first two children. So I get to have breakfast and lunch with them, and it's super awesome for me. I thought it was going to be hard at first, but what we found out was simply installing doors on the office was enough, and when the doors are closed, Daddy's at work. So that gives that separation. Another bonus is I did not buy gas in the month of July last year. On average, I spent about $20 a month, but currently I drive a Prius. Before that, I had a huge SUV, and I was spending about $250 a month on gas just to drive the 15 to 20 minutes to work and back. So it was like getting a raise additionally. And finally, I get back a substantial amount of time. The 20-minute commute each way was costing me about 3.5 hours per week, and I've used this time to go to the gym without robbing any time from my family. Here you can see my setup. I have a standing desk. I have a monitor where I can see my team in a persistent video chat. I have all my chat clients up in this other monitor, and then I have my work area where I write all the codes. I work at Hearst Business Media. You may be aware of our company from our vast array of newspapers, magazines, and news organizations that we own and run. But Hearst also owns quite a few content-based software companies that operate under their own brand. So I work with the companies in the space of automotive, financial, and healthcare. So I basically work as an internal consultant, helping these business units, which I'll probably call BUs as we go on, because that's what I refer to them as. I help the business units move from their existing data centers up into the cloud. And for the most part, we're using AWS, but we're also using Azure. This saves a lot of time and money over hiring consultants. And there's also an added benefit that I'm a full-time employee, so I'm still there for these companies after our engagement is over.
Do you work for multiple companies at the same time?
I work for Hearst Business Media, and Hearst Business Media owns all of these companies or has controlling interest in the companies. So I'm like an internal consultant. So they all operate under their own brand, right? So you wouldn't know that they were Hearst other than like Hearst Health. So it's kind of like an internal consultancy. So in this job, I use AWS quite a bit. I also use Azure, but I use Chef, Sumo Logic, New Relic, PagerDuty, Qbot, Slack, and a whole bunch of other tools. So that brings us to ChatOps. Our team provides Slack for all of our business units. Before we provided Slack, there wasn't really that much cross-pollination between these companies because they are really separate entities. The only thing that glues them together is the fact that we own them. So I've worked with a few of the BUs to actually set up their ChatOps inside of the Slack client that we provide for them. So ChatOps kind of gives us this artificial intelligence. If you've never heard of ChatOps, I'll be showing quite a few examples of it here in a minute. But if you're interested, there's a great introduction by Jason Hand, who works at VictorOps and actually runs DevOps Days Denver. You can download it for free, or if you see him at any conferences, they usually are giving these out. So to do ChatOps, you need two things. You need a chat client and a bot. I personally use Slack and Qbot currently. But in the past, I've used HipChat, I've used IRC. There's definitely things for Skype and Link and Campfire. I believe there's an AOL, like AIM plugin type of thing. And so the bots, Qbot is written in Node.js, Lita is written in Ruby, and Urbot is written in Python. So starting with Slack, the simplest way to get started is to add an existing API integration. These are really cool because it's just point and click. You go into Slack, you go to the apps and integrations, and then you search for things that other people have put out there, minimal setup, and they're just up and running. So we've added a number of integrations. These help put like a story format to things that are going on. Here we have the GitHub integration, where I've integrated anytime we push or pull or someone logs an issue or whatever, that it actually says that in our room. And then I've got New Relic, which is our monitoring, and then that would actually push into the Slack room to let us know that some of our monitoring is going off. And then finally, PagerDuty. Slack integrations are great because of the quick setup. There's minimal configuration, and they're often managed by the company that actually owns the software that it's connecting to. So the Slack integration for PagerDuty is run by the company that runs PagerDuty. So they're usually doing pretty good there. There's a big drawback that it's often way too simplistic of a workflow for something that you want to interact with. So there's where we enter in a bot. The simplest bot, or the most widely used, is probably Hubot, which comes from GitHub. And so Hubot's going to allow us the ability to start entering our own logic into this interchange. Hubot plugins are written in CoffeeScript, which compiles down to JavaScript. However, the syntax for it is quite a bit more Ruby-like, and it's a lot more human-readable. Disclaimer, these examples are remarkably silly. These are the ones that are just, what's that?
How much is it?
How much is Hubot?
Uh-huh.
It's free and open source.
Oh. That's good.
So all you have to do is, if you can figure out how to get it installed somewhere, you can use it. So yeah, these examples are silly. They're actually from, I believe, the README or the canonical documentation for Hubot. But the first example we see, or we hear, and then we send. So anytime that the word badger is said in the room, then it says, badgers? Badgers? We don't need no stinking badgers. So the code for this is remarkably simple. It's just, if you hear a word, then you send back a message that's predefined. For the second example, we see respond and reply. The difference here is that you would have to address the bot by saying the name of the bot at the beginning. So instead of just any time the word badger shows up, you'd have to say bot name badgers. So here we say whatever the bot name is, open the bay doors, and it responds with, I'm afraid I can't let you do that. And then the final example, it shows again here, but it emotes. So in most chat clients, not all of them, if you emote something, it kind of puts it in italics to say that that's what that person is doing. So here we say, I like pie, and then the bot says, its name bakes a fresh pie. At some point, you're going to need to persist data. This is fairly simple in the code. So you want to save something to disk. Canonically, in Hubot, it saves in Redis, which is a key value store. So you have getters. You can get the number of sodas. So it says, Hubot's responding, have a soda. And it gets the number of sodas, and then it sets the number of sodas previously there plus 1. So the cool thing about Hubot is kind of like Slack is that you're going to have a bunch of plugins that someone else has already written for you. These are open source, and these are some of the plugins that I've actually used and contributed to. There's Hubot PagerMe, which connects into PagerDuty. There's Hubot Confluence, which will connect into your wiki. LeanKit, which is a Kanban board. New Relic, and Sumo Logic.
So what's your platform? Windows, Mac, or Linux?
Platform for
Hubot?
Hubot? We run the actual Hubot on a Linux machine, but since it's JavaScript, it can run anywhere that you can install JavaScript. We just spin up, I believe, an EC2 Micro, like the smallest machine you can get in AWS, and run the node server, and that's more than enough. So here I'm interacting with New Relic Hubot. I say the name of the bot, which is @bot, New Relic apps, and then it tells me that currently my app for the chef stack is up. And then I say @bot New Relic servers, and it tells me whether things are up or down. And then at a quick glance, instead of having to go to New Relic to look this up, I can see key indicators like memory, disk, and CPU. So if we're having an incident and I want to figure out where might our problem be, all I have to do is type that one command, and then I can see very quickly. So on our team, we've defined what we consider an incident to be. It's any situation that impacts the ability of customers, whether they're internal or external, to consume or use the system or service in a safe and secure manner. So our goal on our team is to automate all of the maintenance that would go into doing an incident. So anything that anybody has to do, we want to make that smoother so that we can get those seconds or minutes or hours back to try to get the system back up and running. So incidents can actually come on and be surprising, or you can totally see them coming, and sometimes there's just nothing that you can do about it. Kitty. So as a user, I interact with Slack to manage the state of the incident. Slack's going to interact with Hubot, and Hubot makes a call to PagerDuty, and when it gets the information back, Hubot's going to post in the Slack room. Is anybody here familiar with webhooks? Got a couple? Before I started working on this stuff, I was familiar that there was a thing called webhooks. I had never really implemented one. But now that I've been implementing my own, like it's this awesome method of like augmenting or altering the behavior of a web application with these custom callbacks. So you define an event-driven resource, which is just a URI, and then you have another program hit that when something happens. So you've got this listener, basically this URI, and some other program's going to call into that. So in PagerDuty, I have two webhooks, one for Slack and one for my Hubot plugin. And when an event occurs in PagerDuty, then it broadcasts to these endpoints. And then on the Slack side, I create a webhook to listen in to that. So it's important for our team that everything goes through PagerDuty. So if I do things in PagerDuty first and it doesn't come through Slack or not, we still want it to make sure that it's updating the room. So if you're familiar with PagerDuty, you can interact with PagerDuty like from sending a text message to acknowledge things. You can interact through the app, you can interact through the browser, or you can interact through Slack. It doesn't matter. Somehow I'm interacting with PagerDuty, and I want to make sure that anything I do in PagerDuty, it's going to send through those webhooks and then update the Slack room. So for us, every single second counts. As we discussed at the beginning, the average downtime could cost a business about $10,000 per minute that the website is down. So we've built a workflow for incidents, and we continue to refine it as we go through it with more businesses. So we wanted to ensure that we're not impeding on the workflow at all. So here I'm triggering the incident through a bot. I simply say, this bot I call BU bot for our business units. Pager trigger the schedule in PagerDuty, and then that we're doing a test incident. So what we do is we display a standard set of reminders of things that you should do at the beginning of the incident. First thing you should do is acknowledge the incident in PagerDuty. For a lot of our business units, they want to notify support in case they get more calls in. They want to check their other tools, whether those are Sumo Logic, New Relic, or wherever they're doing their monitoring. They want to update the public client status page, which for many of them is manual at this point, but we're working on automating that. And then email the client contacts DL. This is our basic list that we want to get out, but we're working on ways of customizing this and also making all of those things automated so that some human doesn't have to read this list and then actually go through it. So then I start typing things into the Slack room. The first thing I should probably do is acknowledge, and eventually I do that, is I acknowledge the thing, and the bot tells me that it is acknowledged, showing that it was listening. And the acknowledgement's important because one of the things that we're tracking across our business units is mean time to acknowledgement. So we want that to go down over time. We want the incident to happen, our alerting tells us, and the acknowledgement time goes down. When the incident is over, we resolve the incident, and then we see another checklist, and we have reminders for that. Again, on the more specialized clients that we're doing, we're automating these things for our clients. So that's update the public client status page, email client contacts DL, and schedule that post-mortem. And then it's not actually closed until you've held a post-mortem. Blameless postmortems are really important to me. Last fall I did a talk at DevOps Days KC about failure in the third way, where I discussed just culture. If you've never seen the Code is Craft blog, you should check it out for many reasons. but one of them is the blameless postmortem log. So we're measuring across all of our clients. I've actually written another application where we're pulling in all the PagerDuty data, and we're bringing this to the executive level to show that we're actually getting better at our incidents over time from the work that we're doing. You can do this directly in PagerDuty and see those metrics. So have you anybody ever been on the bridge when there's an incident or the call? Yeah? And
was that the conversation between you and your coworker, or between you and the robot? In last spot?
the last thing, that was the conversation between me and the robot.
Oh,
There could be conversation between me and the coworker during the incident, and we're actually going to log that too.
So where did you host the web server?
Where do I host the web server? In AWS.
Oh, I was thinking you were hosting your local host.
Nope. On the Hubot runs on AWS.
Okay.
So we've encouraged. I know that in the past when I've been on the bridge or the calls or whatever, a lot of times the managers are quiet because they know once they start talking, then everyone else stops. So we've been encouraging a culture where the managers actually interact in Slack regularly, and this is working at a lot of our business units because the managers are actually in there interacting, and they see that they're not seen as that scary entity that's just sitting there silently listening. So the other thing we did with our bot is everything that's said during the course of the incident is pushed out to the notes inside of PagerDuty to set up that postmortem. Because when you do a postmortem, what you want to have is, here are the facts. Here's what happened when the incident started, and here's everything that we tried along the way. And then the only facts you have left to gather are the things that happened leading up to the incident. The important part that we've learned about alerting systems is setting it up in such a way that only the important thing triggers. If you've ever had a poorly set up alerting system, then you can likely feel for this poor puppy. The alert starts with just one or two, and pretty soon you've got hundreds of things coming in. So the bot that we created, or the bot plugin, the Hubot plugin, is open source. It's called Hubot Incident, and you can find it on GitHub. We're actually creating our own bot from scratch that we refer to as Slappy, or Simple Lightweight API. We call our plugin Slappins. Why would we build yet another bot? Hubot is least common denominator, which means that it's going to work on all the different Slack clients, or all the different chat clients. We wanted one that was specific to Slack, and we wanted people to be able to write in whatever language they wanted. We have a lot of .NET people. We have a lot of people that write in Node. We have a lot of people that write in Ruby. So we wanted any possible language that you want to write it in. And the way that we're able to do this is we're using Docker as the packaging system. So all of the plugins are loaded in as Docker containers. So text-based communication does have its limitations. One of the important parts of human communication is actually seeing that other person's face in both their mouth and their eyes to see how they actually are interacting with you. So we use Sakoko. This is not my actual team. This is just a screenshot from Sakoko on the website. But I have a persistent client running all day where like the video camera's on me and the video camera's on the rest of my team, so we can like chat or whatever. If you're doing something, we can shut it off or whatever. We can go into different rooms and have our own little meetings. But since our team's distributed all over the place, this is pretty huge. Humor is also another important piece, which is why we have a culture of using fun GIFs to lighten the mood. We found that slash Giphy in Slack was not always work appropriate. So this is one of the GIFs that we use whenever anybody says nailed it in our room. So now on to the cool part. If I haven't got all of you to fall asleep yet, maybe you'll wake up when I start using the echo. So first thing you need is a personal assistant. I've used Siri on my phone for a number of years. I've used OK Google on my watch. However, Amazon is allows the most flexible code platform to back their assistant. Has anybody here used Cortana yet? Is the SDK for that still coming along?
I think there's a
Okay.
Windows voice interpretation.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm crazy. Everyone told me not to do a demo. Do you guys want to see the demo? Ready for a big ball of fail?
Does it require the internet?
Yes.
All right, very good.
Yes, it does. So I have my Slack client here. How do I want to do this? Actually, this will be easier if I don't mirror and I just put it up there for you guys. It's on this side. Okay. And this one. Of course, that's going to be over there. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pager so I don't disrupt Levi's day. Oh, maybe we'll see Levi because I hit the wrong button. Oh no. So I saw as I was walking in here that Slack's connectivity issues were happening. So the quickest way usually to fix Slack is to just restart it, because then you get a new connection. If you get a connection at all. So anybody have any good jokes? I know someone who might. Alexa, tell me a joke.
What's the tallest building in town? The library. It has the most stories.
This is terrible.
So that SOCOC,
What's that? Sococo?
That's SOCOC?
Yep. S-O-C-O-C-O. Yeah.
Okay. Is that free?
Sococo, they have a free tier and they have a paid tier.
Okay. Is it essentially kind of like a way of like managing, I guess, I want to be private versus I want to be in a meeting room and people? Is it kind of like visualization for what you normally have in the office?
Yeah, normally we use Zoom, which is very similar to Skype. Normally we use Zoom, but it's not persistent, and over time, like it starts to eat up your processor. We found that not to be the case with Sococo. So, you know, technology, right? I think I can get around this. Can you guys? No, that's not going to work, right? I think so.
Does that make it do the Wi-Fi over here, or is it just part of the site?
I don't know. Let's give this a try. Alexa, start Slacker.
What would you like to post in Slack?
Start demo mode.
You are not seriously going to try to do a demo in front of all of these people, are you?
Yes, that's the plan.
Okay, what could go wrong? You are planning on using the Echo, right? Hopefully not that janky Raspberry Pi.
That's right. Create a new incident
Your
for
message
demo.
has been sent. You can ask me to repeat it by saying, "What's my message?"
Create a new incident for demo.
I have told the Slack room to create a new incident for demo.
Which I see on my phone. So all of the connections are there, except for my Slack client is not connecting to their servers. So I wish they had a plug-in so I could give you my phone. You think so?
Turn it off and back on again.
There we have it. Beautiful timing. I haven't had a problem with Slack in quite some time. So we triggered the incident by talking to the Echo. And here we can see the PagerDuty. It's webhook actually posted. So this is coming just from that integration, the very simple integration that I was talking about earlier. For a lot of people, this is enough because then we have a button where I can just acknowledge here. And then we have our bot that's actually telling us the things that we should do during this incident. So from there, provided this continues to stay connected, Alexa, start Slacker.
What would you like to post in Slack?
Acknowledge latest pager incident.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
Alexa, start Slacker.
What would you like to post in Slack?
Acknowledge latest pager incident.
I have told PagerDuty to acknowledge incident number 333.
So then we see that it's acknowledged and it reassigned it to me because I'm the one that
Okay, what could go wrong? You are planning on using the Echo, right? Hopefully not that janky Raspberry Pi.
Alexa, stop. So you can
Are we
see.
going to do this?
Alexa, stop. No, we're not going to do this. So you can see part of the problem with voice-controlled stuff is it's still not exactly right. So the other things that I'm going to do during the incident is I'm actually going to look at my monitoring system. So Alexa, start Slacker. Alexa, start Slacker.
What would you like to post in Slack?
Display the servers from New Relic.
The latest server information should now show in the Slack room.
Alexa, start Slacker.
What would you like to post in Slack?
Display the apps from New Relic.
The latest server information should now show in the Slack room.
Which is yet another problem, which I'll go into in a minute. So then the final thing we want to do is we actually want to resolve this. So Alexa, start Slacker. Alexa, start Slacker.
What would you like to post in Slack?
Resolve latest pager incident.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
Alexa, start Slacker.
What would you like to post in Slack?
Resolve latest pager incident. Oh, did it?
I have told PagerDuty to resolve incident number 333.
Alexa, start Slacker.
What would you like to post in Slack?
React fail.
Fail reaction sent.
Yeah, so that's that. So making ChatOps actually about chatting. So again, your mileage is going to vary because this works for me fairly well because I work from home in my own office. So if you want to create a skill of your own, then you can go to developer.amazon.com and authenticate. The way this works is you define a JSON schema, very similar to this, and provide sample utterances. So there's a JSON schema, and here's sample utterances. So I said, create a new incident for, and then I gave it a reason. This is actually deprecated, the literal, and that's where I ran into some of those problems, is because whatever the echo heard, that's what it put into there. So I said, create a new incident for, and then I gave it a reason. I just gave it demo. So what you should use is slots. Instead of this literal, use slots here, and then you can define the actual words. So then it will try to get as close as it can to the word that it thought that it thought you used. So instead of hearing like some other word that sounds like first, like worst, it will be like, oh, okay, you meant first because it sounds most like first as opposed to all or latest. And here is where I did that for acknowledge incident number latest. I tried to do this with an actual number, and once I got over 200, I ran into issues because like I would say acknowledge PagerDuty incident 252, and it would think I said 2 like TO, and acknowledge pager incident 152 because it heard the 100. So I said, how about acknowledge pager incident 252 without the 100? And it thought I meant TO, and then it would acknowledge pager incident 52. So even when you're defining the slots very discreetly with numbers, like it's a little bit wonky because the way that we say things and what it's actually interpreting. There's an entire, science behind how they're doing voice design now. If you guys are interested, you can check this out. People are writing books on how to do voice design. So it's definitely a field that's going to have quite a bit of growth in the next couple of years, especially given that hundreds of thousands of these devices are being sold recently. So the architecture that we're going to add into the picture we already had is we're going to move me up a little bit. And what happened is I talked to the Echo. The Echo actually went to AWS Lambda, which is serverless architecture, which means you don't have to manage the actual servers that this runs on. You just put the code up there. So I wrote code in Node.js. You can write it in Python. You can write it in C# and Java. And then from there, Lambda was hitting a webhook to post things into Slack. And then it was also hitting the PagerDuty API directly, as opposed to doing webhook type of things there. So is anybody here familiar with AWS Lambda? Or I believe in Google Cloud, they're called functions, and I believe in Azure, they're called functions. It's this really, I don't know, I think it's the coolest thing that I've worked with in the last couple of years because I'm able to define code and just kick it off, and then the payment model is phenomenal, especially on AWS. I think I get 1 million calls a month for free. So not only do I not have to manage the architecture and spend a bunch of money, but I also get this like ridiculous amount of calls free. So all the stuff that I've done here, the pricing model, I've never had to pay for it, even through all the testing that I've done. So like I said, those Lambda skills can be written in a bunch of different languages. I chose Node.js just because it was the one that I knew the best of the ones offered. And the way that I connected all of this up is based on those intents that I showed earlier. If the intent matches this, then I call a different function where I define all of the logic. I open sourced all of the code I did here. It's kind of messy. This was a side project to build on top of all of the work that we were doing for incident management. And if you're interested, an Echo costs close to $200. They have a smaller version that's about $50. I've got this actually up and running on a Raspberry Pi. The only thing about that is it has to be connected to a monitor. I haven't figured out how to run it headless yet because you have to push to actually listen in. If you want to do it for free and test things, there's echosim.io, which I think came from a... Do I have to do shift? No. You may know how I get this to open. Oh, I do that. This came from a contest that they had, and someone built it. So I can log in with Amazon. Maybe. Alexa, tell me a joke.
What do you get when you combine Star Wars and baseball?
Favorite time of day.
The umpire strikes out.
2:30.
Double jokes. Like I said, I work at Hearst. We have a number of tools or a number of apps in the App Store. The biggest ones we have are the L horoscopes, if you're into horoscopes. We also have one for Oprah Magazine and Good Housekeeping, so you should check those out. And the coolest project that I've seen at all in this space actually uses a completely different stack, but it's this project from Josh Newland called Say What. It uses Python, it uses Splunk as a back-end store, but he said you can probably rip that out if you did a little bit of work. And he uses IBM Watson. So listen to what this project does. A script listens in meetings that I'm supposed to be paying attention to. And it pings me in HipChat when my name is mentioned. It sends me a transcript of what was said the minute before my name was mentioned, and then sometime after. It also goes so far as to play an audio file that I've recorded of myself saying, "Sorry, I didn't realize my mic was on mute there," 15 seconds after my name was mentioned. So I think that's a pretty cool application of this, especially for a remote worker when you're on these calls. Like part of the reason you're working remote is to get away from the meetings. You still have the meetings, but this is a way to be able to zone out and be pulled in only at the time that you're needed. You have to invoke them by their name, similar to the bots. This is an awesome conference. Definitely take this survey. I think that's how you win the Xbox One. I have bonus slides. But we're about out of time, so I'd rather, if you guys had any questions.
To create a skill in I'm assuming you're using Slack skill. Have you actually tried programming using the Amazon
The
like
So-
like create your own skill?
So I started with just the Slack skill, and I essentially like ripped out most of it. By the end, I'd almost rewritten all the stuff other than how to connect to Slack. But there are ones, I think one of the ones that I started with to try to understand it is like an encyclopedia one where you can just like ask it things and it gives you like Wikipedia type of answers back. There's a number of ones like that. I believe Dan created one for our DevOps KC. Yeah, there's the DevOps KC skill. Yours is it in the store? Is it in the store?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the one thing that's really quiz. Parents go and questions. But add more time to it.
Yeah.
You're not even with
With what?
the Google.
Google Home? I haven't yet. I want to, but I don't have one. Is one thing. And initially, when I started working on this stuff about a year ago, their SDK like just you couldn't call your own apps.
I think it just came out like a year or two ago. So it's like that's the advantage of Amazon Echo is that already had the earlier release, so it's got
With the Amazon stuff, I've found I have two different Fire Sticks, and one's from a couple years ago, and one's from 1 year ago. And the older one finally just updated to the new operating system, which I thought was weird. Like, I don't know why I didn't update earlier or whatever, but there's this interesting thing of like the hardware and software correlation. So, had I not bought this for $200 a couple years ago or a year ago or whatever, I would have the $50 one, which essentially does very similar things. I think it doesn't have as good of maybe speakers in some degree and maybe a little bit less on mics, but for my needs, it would be fine. The kids love to hear the jokes over and over. All right, rock and roll. Well, thank you.